Welcome to the Gite podcast. Brought to you by Gite Guru.
Hello, fellow Gitas, and a very special welcome to my fellow Gita, Fran.
Hello, Rupa. Thank you for finally allowing me to be on your podcast.
We decided that we would do our first ever podcast together because today is the 10th anniversary of when we bought Lamasse.
How time flies.
How time flies, and we now have a bit of hindsight looking back at everything that's happened to us. So I asked everyone on Instagram to send us in some questions. Mary very kindly wrote, "Your life is my dream. Can't wait to see all the questions and answers." So let's kick off. And the first one is from Natasha. Hello, Natasha, who has asked, what's the funniest or most unusual item guests have left behind?
Oh, well. Are we going to go there?
I think you can go there.
It has to do with sex items.
And what did you do with these sex items, which will remain unnamed?
Yes. Well, normally, as you know, we try to send things back if at all possible. We contemplated, should we contact the people? Do you need these back? But then we thought it was probably more embarrassing to them as it was to us. So we threw them away.
Did you throw them away, Frank?
We did throw them away.
Good.
It's quite cute. Our Australian guests.
Pete.
Yes, yeah. Well, they travel from literally the other end of the world to come stay with us. And he's an avid fly fisher. And he has these waders, these rubber waders. And so he left them here.
He has left them behind because then he comes back to use them again.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Sex toys and waders. That's the answer to the question, Natasha. Next question, Frank.
There's a question from Le Domaine de Loustalviel, who would be interested to hear what has changed over the 10 years that you guys have been running your gîtes. This is our first year, so it has been quite a learning curve.
Congratulations on your first year. I bet it was a learning curve. Our first year was a massive learning curve because we got quite a few major things completely wrong. But I think what's changed in the last 10 years is when we started out, we really focused on getting everything in place. The business, the marketing, the communication, getting the product absolutely right. And for the first 3, 4, 5 years, we just built on that. It was very easy to know what to do. And then we got hit by Brexit, COVID, Ukraine, Gaza, and the world has completely changed. Certainly marketing has become much more difficult, I think. We used to get so many inquiries, and now there are very few inquiries. Fortunately, most of them lead to bookings. We've still got record years. It's still going really well, but it's just not as vibrant as it used to be when it comes to marketing. There are also lots more rules and regulations in place, which I think is a really good thing because there has been a massive increase in the last 10 years of the number of gîtes on the market, certainly on Airbnb. The more rules and regulations there are, the more it will ensure that we are all collectively offering a really good product or service to guests. And then a question for you, Frank, from Helen. How has running a gîte affected your relationship with me?
With you. We had been together when we started this adventure. We had been together 12 years and we lived together, but obviously we had each our own job. As soon as we moved to France, we were together 24/7, working on the same project, achieving the same goals.
So we had 12 years of living together in Amsterdam and now 10 years of this.
Yes.
And how has it affected the relationship?
Well, I think it has made us stronger, and you sort of have to be able to rely upon each other.
What you said earlier about having the same vision, I think that's the way you cope with it. When you know that the two of you share the same goal, want the same outcome for all the hard work you're putting in, then you can kind of get through anything, can't you?
You can. And although there are some explosions...
What are you going to say, Frank?
Explosions every now and then.
But that's mostly what it is. It isn't annoyance with each other. It's venting the stress or the frustration out,
Yes.
Channeling it through each other.
Yes.
In order to make it work.
Yeah, true. I think I'm a little more volatile, whereas you are able then to sort of put things in perspective. Not?
I think that's very generous of you. I don't think that's true at all. I was the one who came up with the idea of moving here, but you very quickly came on board with it. if I doubted that you shared the same dream I had of what we could
Yes.
create here and
Yes.
achieve here,
Yes.
then it just wouldn't have been the same. To me,
Yes.
it's really important that we are a team,
Yes.
and we are. But I knew that this would be a better lifestyle for us. I
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
knew it.
Yeah.
I did have to slightly convince you, but
Yes.
I knew this was the answer for
Yeah.
the next chapter of our lives. Catherine now asks, when you first started, did you do all the changeovers yourselves? Well, over to you, head of housekeeping.
My goodness. Do you remember when we first started, we had maybe 1 or 2 extra help? We started with just 1.
I don't know how we did it.
No, impossible.
But it must have just been for Lamass, which is the big house, and not a double changeover, double house changeover.
We were really, really, really trying as much as possible not to spend any money, because we were not sure whether we would be successful.
Were we stingy, or were we just trying to ensure we had a profit at the end of the day?
I think we were just very careful
Yeah.
to a point where it was perhaps even counterproductive.
But we had spent a massive amount of money because not only we bought the place and renovated it, but we had to furnish it as well. So we had literally spent every penny we had.
So from 1 lady helping us in the beginning, we are now 4 ladies plus the 2 of us.
So we've basically doubled the team. And I think we probably could do the changeovers with 5 of us, not 6, but we just don't want that stress anymore.
No, exactly.
And every time there is an emergency, the least we've got the time to deal with it before the next guests arrive.
Beginning, we were willing to take on every job ourselves, mainly because we didn't want to spend any money on external help. Then there's a question from La Guillonnerie. What's the biggest mistake you've made?
Life or running a gîte?
Let's stick to running a gîte.
One of the most painful was we had a cancellation policy at the beginning that we hadn't really thought through at all. We just thought we were being hospitable, and it completely backfired on us because somebody did cancel a 2-week booking in June. I don't think we had thought through the fact that when you have a big property and lots of people come to stay there, that it takes a big group time to organize themselves. So they aren't likely to book last minute. That 2-week gap was really painful. And we sat here with an empty house for 2 weeks thinking about all the money we'd lost out on. And I remember we had a discussion with some French gîte owner friends about it at the time. And they just said, well, why have you got a cancellation policy like that? We don't understand. And we were like, oh, we didn't even know it was a choice. We hadn't thought it through at all.
You live and learn.
You live and learn, never to be repeated.
This is a question from Chateau de Raillet. Tell us about one of your most stressful moments as a gîte owner and one of your joyous moments.
You can do the stressful one.
Okay. Whenever we have real stress, there's water involved. There's a burst pipe or a leaking shower tray.
Broken roof tile during a rainstorm.
Yep. And water comes in through the ceiling. We will try to fix it ourselves, but it's so important to have a really, really good relationship with specifically the plumber, I would say, that we call urgence, and he does rock up the same day.
That's where the stress comes in. It's not so much that there's water pouring down the walls of the sitting room. It's more that we can't fix it ourselves and we are dependent on him.
We're reliant on
turning up.
The stress is there more, will he come today or will it only be in 2 days?
I'm always so relieved when it's something easy that we can solve immediately. And I'll talk about the joyous moments.
Of course you do.
Just love joy. When I read this question, there was one moment that was a joyous moment. It was in our, I think, 3rd or 4th year. We had a family come and stay for 2 weeks, and we showed them around, checked them in, and then I went and sat in our garden with Plum. And after about 10 minutes, I saw Mike coming up to me, and I thought, oh, God, I hope everything's all right. And he said, my wife has sent me over to ask if we can book for 3 weeks next year because it's exactly the kind of place that she loves. And it was that moment of, we've got the product right. Everything kind of came together in one moment.
Yes. And well, there's another one. When we received news that the Daily Telegraph had given us a score of 9 out of 10.
Yeah. It was really unusual for them to review anywhere that wasn't a hotel because they want their readers to be able to actually go and stay somewhere.
Yes.
And a gîte, of course, as soon as it's booked, then it's unavailable to everyone else. We managed to persuade them to come and stay
Mhm.
and review us. We got a message saying it's now online. And so we went behind the computer and had a look. And it was 9 out of 10. And I was a bit like, we've dropped a point.
I don't think I've ever seen. I don't think they do 10 out of 10.
She'd written sections about us. So what's the location like and what's the product like? And it was just incredible to read what a professional journalist had written.
It is, again, a moment where our product and the way we run the product is validated.
Yeah.
But Mike was like the client, and the Telegraph review was a professional looking at our product and giving it the thumbs up.
The other moments I really love are when I know that we're going to be in a newspaper and then I have to stay up till 1 in the morning.
Yes.
And you're fast asleep
For
always.
the online version to come out.
Yeah, and then I read it and then I nudge you and say, they've put a photo in. Gîtes don't really get into newspapers very often. It's quite a difficult thing to achieve. So I like a challenge. And it's also kind of validation that you should just go for it. On to the next question. Rachel, if you could give us one piece of advice from your last 10 years, what would it be? Over to you, Frank.
My top tip is to get professional advice. For instance, on tax matters, because that is, especially if you're not French, it's going to be totally different.
Completely complicated.
And so important as well.
And changes all the time. Professional advice, I think that's true. Definitely get an accountant. Definitely get a visa expert if you don't have an EU passport. And yeah, definitely get Gîte Guru in. Am I allowed to say that?
Of course you are.
Oh, okay. I think my one top tip is to continuously be proactive. It's very easy when you've got your place guest ready and you've built the website and you've put yourself on Airbnb to then sit back and react to things that come in or need to be done. Don't sit back and wait for things to happen with your gîtes.
And don't rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
You need to think of the next step to take.
We're very pleased with how our marketing works, but I am still challenged with how we're going to fill some of the months next year. Maybe going back to the question about what's the main difference with 10 years ago, when I took Plum for a walk, I would often think at the beginning of the walk, I wonder whether my phone will ping while I'm on my walk and we'll get an inquiry. Sometimes it did. It wasn't unusual. And now that is very unusual. Being proactive and getting expert advice are, I think, two really good top tips.
Cynthia would like to know what is our biggest regret or downside that was unanticipated.
I know what yours is.
For me, the biggest regret is that we sold our flat in Amsterdam. We had this wonderful flat in the most fantastic neighborhood in the Jordaan in Amsterdam, but we needed the money.
Could we not have kept it? For me, it was quite a lot to do with the hassle of having a property in a different country, and tax-wise, how would that all work? And would we earn enough off the rent to pay all the bills and the mortgage and the washing machine when it broke down? When we sold it and we had to pay back the mortgage, there was probably 50,000 euros left over.
We did need that money. We were so preoccupied with this project here that we didn't have a lot of headspace to also turn what was our house in Amsterdam, our home, into a rental.
And the reason I knew Frank was going to answer this question this way is because his flat, or our flat, it was your flat when I met you.
It was our flat when we left.
It has recently come back on the market, and we sold it for 335,000 euros, and it's now back on the market at 535,000 euros.
It's tiny.
Yeah, it was 49 square meters and absolutely minuscule.
Yes.
But for it to have gone up 200,000 in 10 years is slightly painful. One of my biggest regrets is what Frank said to the Belgians in year 2.
What did I say to the Belgians?
We were invited over for a drink from some very polite and quite formal Belgian family with lovely grandparents and their children and lots of grandchildren. And they invited us to a drink, and we all sat around the table in the summer kitchen. One of them asked Frank, have you ever considered having children? And Frank slammed the table and said, we've been trying and trying and trying. We just can't get pregnant.
And you cringed.
You saw all these children just look at their parents as if to say, well, how are we meant to respond to this? And I nearly died. It was really embarrassing.
They took it
You thought it was really funny. I didn't at all. My biggest regret is we didn't have a gîte guru. We didn't have somebody we could go to and say, how the hell do we sort out this? Or, what do guests want from that? And I remember after we'd opened, we were talking to some French friends who had a gîte, and they said to us, what's your rental agreement? And we were like, yeah, what? What's he talking about? We had no idea that it was mandatory in France to have a rental agreement. We were just so naive, and there was so much we didn't know. And none of that would have happened if we had had a gîte guru who would be able to show the pros and cons for every decision we had to make, and help us come to the right one. And we were advertising Le Mas as both a bed and breakfast and a gîte when we started out, because we were just desperate for money. How do you communicate something like that to anyone coming on the website? And this was before the days of availability calendars. It grew into our strength, the fact we didn't have gîte guru. It allowed us to make a lot of mistakes and learn from it. But on the other hand, we would have hit the ground running in a way that we just didn't. It was a crazy time and really enjoyable, but we would have been more financially stable earlier on if we'd had a gîte guru. So that's my regret. That and the Belgians.
I think the Belgians still laugh about it now.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, just like we do. And then Kath has asked, what's the best item you have in the gîte for positive feedback? Head of housekeeping?
It's not just one item, I would say. It's the fact that the houses are very, very well equipped. At least that's how people refer to it in their reviews.
We wanted it to be well equipped, but we never thought that actually that was going to be almost a unique selling point.
Indeed.
Because of how often it's mentioned in reviews.
Something that we had experienced ourselves when going to houses that we rented.
We never went to a well-equipped place.
Exactly.
Oh, so the bar was set really low and we smashed it.
This is a question from Jenny, and she would like to know, how do we deal with difficult guests?
Difficult guests is a really difficult topic, because why is a guest difficult? You've got guests who, when they're staying, things go wrong. There are leaks or power cuts, or that they're ill and they need doctor's appointments. None of that makes them a difficult guest. You're also not always aware of what's going on behind closed doors, what the dynamics are in a family or a group setting, what mood people are in, what's happened before they've arrived. The clear definition I can give of a difficult guest is somebody who just does not respect our property. We have actually never talked publicly about our guests before, so this is quite weird. But there were 3 guests who we've had who I think all disrespected the property. The first was they had a young baby, and when we went in to do the changeover after they'd left, they had left soiled nappies on the bedding, on the furniture.
Upholstered furniture.
Oh, and it stank. How anyone could leave a property like that, I just don't know. They didn't care.
One wonder if they do that at home.
There was also a group of Belgians who decided in July that it would be a really good idea to have a bonfire outside next to a field of wheat.
During a heat wave.
During a heat wave. And the wheat hadn't been cut, so the wheat was, 80 centimetres high, a metre high. And this bonfire was a metre away. They'd gone and got firewood out of our wood store and started a fire. So we went down there with buckets and we apologised and said, very sorry to spoil your fun, but this is actually seriously dangerous. We very carefully poured the water onto the fire, and the guest said, don't worry, we've been looking to make sure there are no sparks flying and, it'll be fine.
It only takes one ember.
Looking at the news in France every summer, and in Spain and Portugal and Turkey and Greece, wildfires are super serious. The third example that pops in my head is a family who were quite prim and proper and normal, and I think if you lived next to them, they would be excellent neighbours. But when they came here, they just partied. And we have a kind of rule, because we're on top of a hill and sound really does carry. After midnight, we ask guests to keep the noise down, and they just didn't. And every night it became this kind of battle of how long were they going to continue and how many Bat Out of Hells were they going to sing, kind of karaoke style. And were our neighbours all lying in bed going, oh, that bloody Le Mas and Le Mazette. So yeah, those are just 3 examples of people who we would never want to have back. And because of that, we have a blacklist. And there are lots more people on the blacklist. And fortunately, none of them, bar 1, has actually asked to return. And that was a very difficult situation, because then we've got to be the opposite of what we want to be, which is kind and generous and hospitable. And we actually had to say no. Difficult guess is a very difficult subject.
This is a question from Sue. If you could go back to your very first season, what advice would you give yourself?
So what would you tell little Frank?
All will be well in the end. That you will learn from your mistakes. Mistakes are not bad. We professionalized.
And I think I would tell ourselves that just keep going. It's all going to work out. Being thrown into the deep end gives you so many opportunities. Okay, you might splash about for a bit and not know where the hell you're meant to go and you're underwater, but it is going to work out, and you can be creative and you can try different things out. And that's part of the enjoyment.
This is a question from Tom, who he would like to know whether you had found anything particularly difficult running a gîte.
Yes, there have been things particularly difficult about running gîtes, because I think life is difficult and unexpected things happen that can knock you for six. One of them that has happened to us was a couple of years ago. We had a lovely family stay from Los Angeles, real kind of Hollywood family. And they had 9-year-old twins, George and Lily, and they spent 2 weeks here. We have trained Plum not to go down to our gîtes because not everyone likes dogs. But if anyone wants to play with Plum or come and see her, then they have to come up to our garden. And it was in the summer, so I was working on my laptop in the garden quite often. And George and Lily would come to play with Plum. And so over those 2 weeks, I got to know them really well. And Plum adored them. Lily was forever trying to get as high as she could in a tree, climbing her trees, and her parents were always kind of trying to get her down again. And George was this 9-year-old boy who, when you spent time with him, it was as though the difference in years between him and me just kind of disappeared. So there was something very gentle and kind about him. And we had long discussions about his school and the new house they were moving to in LA. And we got them tickets to go to a prehistoric cave with actual polychromatic paintings on the walls. And he came back and told me everything he thought about this. I don't know, he was just one of these people who we enjoyed having them stay very, very much. And a week after they had left, we were having dinner with some friends, and a message came in on my phone from Kelly, the mother, to say that George had died of complications around COVID, and that she wanted to thank us for the last family holiday they ever had. It was so shocking and so cruel, and it just didn't compute, really. This boy had spent a chunk of the last weeks of his life here having a wonderful time and being a wonderful little boy, and it all came to an end. It was very important that we marked the fact that he had been so happy here at the end of his life. We discussed it and came up with the idea of planting a pair of trees for George and Lily, so that the time they had spent here together was remembered in some way, that it was marked. And so we contacted Kelly after a couple of months later and said, we've had this idea. And it was really sweet because when they were staying here, George had said to his mum one night, let's put our iPads down and let's go outside and watch the sunset. So she made them a picnic and they went and sat on the grass, and there were these photos of them doing it. And after he died, friends started posting on Instagram photos of the sunsets wherever they were with hashtag sunset for Georgie. And so what we decided to do was buy 2 sunset maple trees, which go a beautiful red in the autumn, and we line them up with the west so that they are facing sunset. And in the mornings when the sun rises, the shadow of one touches the other. And in many, many years' time, when we're long gone, their branches will touch again. And I think that has allowed me to channel the shock and the grief that I have for his death. And it was very important for me to be able to do that and to show the family that he had made a real impression on us, and we had so enjoyed getting to know him.
Obviously, guests come and guests go, and some of them return, and some don't. Has it surprised you that somebody who you've only met for such a short time has made such an impression?
We have no contact with some guests. They're just here to enjoy their holiday with each other. And we have lots of contact with other guests. It's really up to them. I think with George, it was just such a shock and so cruel that it would happen. And it was so close to when they'd left here.
This is a question from Sonia. Hi, has your business increased in profitability over the 10 years?
Oh, it's a good question. And the simple answer is we don't know yet. No, it definitely has increased in profitability, but I don't have the figures to prove it. Because we were micro-entrepreneur to start off with for the first 9 years, we never had to do a bookkeeping of our costs. So we always knew what our revenue was, what our income was, but not what our costs are. So therefore, what was the profit? Now, for the first year, we're in a different tax regime, and therefore we will know by the end of this year whether we're in profit or not. To begin with, our income was not massive. It's grown and grown as we've gone on because we've managed to extend the season to 32 weeks, and we are charging more money than when we started off. We started off way too low. It's now more than 5 times what it was in year 1. And the Claude Bozy has asked, what do you love the most about being a gîte owner?
Well, first and foremost, I would say is the freedom.
Working with me.
Of course, of course.
What do you mean by freedom?
We are our own boss. We set our own agenda. Obviously, there's the work to be done during the week, but if it happens to be a beautiful day, we can turn everything around and start going somewhere, go for lunch somewhere, take the dog out for a wonderful long walk. I also enjoy having the guests around. Some guests have become friends, which is very nice.
And unexpected.
Very unexpected. We have not really anticipated that.
Yeah.
And yet this is a very, very welcome surprise to be invited over for drinks and dinners. I do not regret having given up our careers and no longer having office politics to worry about.
You got office politics with me now.
Yeah.
Team meetings.
I just
He ignores me.
And there's a lot of creativity involved as well.
And I love the fact that we, even though we're working together, but kind of alone, we are still part of a bigger community of gîte owners.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed that, actually, spending hours talking about cancellation policies and rates. And
it is quite funny because that is basically resembles the kind of relationship you would have with colleagues previously. And I think you sort of need that to be able to
bounce off each other.
Yes, yes. And also, as you said, to vent sometimes because they understand.
Yeah.
They've
Absolutely.
been there.
Peter's asked the question, what was your ambition, dream, or forecast when you started, and have you reached it? Oh, well, should we talk about forecast? I think means money.
My goodness, do you remember when we started out that we had a goal of 30,000 revenue-wise from the business, and that we had also a goal each to make 10,000 euros on the side. I had taken a upholstery course to be able to start an upholstery workshop. You would do antiquing.
Yeah.
There's a whole half a mezzanine full of antique.
Kind of true. It's funny, I don't know where I came up with the figure of 50,000, thinking that 50,000 before tax and with all of the costs of running a business like this would be enough for us to live off. I did also dream about having a vegetable patch and us bottling things in the summer to eat in the winter.
Yes.
Not buying clothes for years to come. And
yes.
So that was the forecast. And it was a bit of a shame, really, that we invested some time and money in your upholstery and my antiques because we never needed it.
Never needed it. But I think it was important for us to be able to have an escape.
Yeah, to adapt.
Yeah, if there would be a problem on the gîte front, that we would be able to also put our eggs in another basket.
Yeah, find a lost Renoir and flog it for millions. I think one of my expectations when we moved here was we were going to become quite invisible. We were going to be living on top of a hill in very rural France and not really be seen by the world anymore. It wasn't a dream of mine to be visible, but it was a concern that we were going to be invisible. I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, but I am relieved that we aren't invisible and that so many opportunities have presented themselves. I've written an article for the Sunday Times. We've been on Channel 4. I'm a guest lecturer for a Dutch university. And all of these things have made our life here much richer. And the things I never contemplated we'd be able to do when we first moved here. I thought we were kind of almost erased from world history when we moved here, and it just hasn't been the case. I think the ambition we had when we moved here was to give up the same old, which is what we were doing in Amsterdam. We both had really good careers, but what would the next 10 or 20 years actually have to offer to us career-wise? It was just same old. And I wanted more from life than that. Moving to France and being penniless together was what I thought the answer was.
Very enticing.
So, penultimate question from Karen. What have you learnt about yourself?
What I found quite amazing is that as a real city person, having lived in towns all my life and quite wary about giving it up, finding it absolutely wonderful here. We have this beautiful setting with 360-degree views. It's a gift. It really is. Like we did last night, I heard the stags
Bellowing,
and it's just
rutting, and
it's magnificent.
I do remember when we first met, and I took you to Wiltshire for the first time. we took the dog for a walk, my parents' dog for a walk.
Yes,
and you were wearing Wellington boots that I don't think you'd ever worn in your life before.
Probably not.
You went and stood in a puddle, lifting your cashmere Gucci coat up so that it wouldn't get dragged into the water and mud. And there is a photo which I will try to post. I'll try and find it and post it in this so you can actually see what I mean. Frank was not a country person when I met you at all. And I am equally astonished that you have taken to it like a duck to water. You really enjoyed it.
Really enjoy it. Having the dog as well.
And that's not to say that you don't like cities anymore, but you have really fully embraced living in the countryside.
For the foreseeable future, I do not see myself going back to a city at all.
Good. Thank God for that. Here's to the next 10 years then.
Exactly.
What I think I've learnt about myself is that I really need that balance between tranquility and having a haven, which I think our home is how it feels to me, and also having a really busy social job. And finding that balance to me is really important. And I think in Amsterdam, I didn't always get that right. I lacked the tranquility and the haven type of feeling. Living here and working with the gîtes has been really hard work, but it's given me that balance. And we're on to the last question. Kevin, from down the road, would we do it all again?
I think the conclusion can only be in a heartbeat.
It's been the most brilliant adventure. I cannot believe it's already 10 years. It doesn't feel like 10 years at all.
No.
But it does feel like a real roller coaster, a lot of ups and downs, especially with taxation changing and COVID and Brexit. But it has all been worth it 1,000,000 times over, hasn't it? It's given us financial stability. We live in the most beautiful place. We're challenged all the time to be creative and hospitable, and it's wonderful.
It brings out the best in us.
I think that's true. That's a really good way of saying it. So thank you very much for listening to our podcast Q&A session on the last 10 years at Le Mas and Le Mazet. I really hope that if you're going down the road of opening a gîte, that it will too bring out the best in you. So thank you very much, and here's to the next 10 years.
Welcome to the Gite podcast. Brought to you by Gite Guru.
Well, that was really good fun talking to my own fellow gîte, Frank, about the last 10 years at Le Mas and Le Mazet. And I've been looking back through some of the photos in order to add them to YouTube. And it really did bring it back to me how amazing that whole renovation period of the 10 years was. We managed to get everything done in 8 months, and within budget. I have no idea how we managed it, but we did. Fantastic builders, very kind people helping us. And it really was a fun time and throwing ourselves in the deep end and really good. So just to give you an idea of the renovations, when we bought Le Mas was being lived in by a couple. Had a few bedrooms, had a few tiny bathrooms. It was all really dark and dingy, and it just didn't work. So we did everything we could to lighten it up. We got rid of all the pine cladding upstairs. For instance, bedroom 1, we put in Velux windows, we put plasterboard over the pine cladding and painted the floor a lighter color to try and really lighten the room. It was so dark beforehand. And that's basically what we did in the rest of the place as well. We took out one staircase, so there were 3 originally. We've now got 2. And we managed to convert all the rooms apart from the kitchen and the sitting room into 5 bedrooms and get bathrooms into all of them. And then Le Mazette, when we bought it, was being run as a gîte called Gite de Jasmine, and it was okay. But that's where we moved into for 6 months during the renovations. And it had a wooden door downstairs into the bedroom, which was so inept at keeping the winter wind and cold out that we had to stuff it with blankets on the inside until we got a new door fitted. Mazette had so much charm and character, but there was a massive kind of wooded area in front of it, which blocked out the views, shortened the garden. And again, it was just very dark and dingy, really. So we've done everything we can to make it look a bit better. And then there was our house, which was a tobacco barn, and we completely renovated it. So the only things that are left from the original building are the foundation wall and also the beams. And everything else is more or less new. And we love it. We did it on a budget. It cost 100,000 euros to renovate our tobacco barn and an extra 15,000 to put in underfloor heating and heat exchange pumps for the hot water. So, I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago, pre-COVID, when prices have gone up massively. But it was affordable and it was fantastic fun and it kind of all worked out. Doing a Q&A session about the last 10 years, it is impossible to talk about everything we've experienced without talking about guests. And as I mentioned in the podcast, it is quite strange talking about guests because we don't normally publicly talk about them. But to be honest, how can we be honest as Gîte Guru when we don't talk about guests? Because they are the reason for our success. They're the reason for so much laughter and happiness and good times. And unfortunately, some of them are also the reason why we have problems. Not all problems come down to guests, but sometimes guests cause a lot of stress and anxiety and problems. And so we thought, actually, without naming names, we can discuss it. And the other person we mentioned by name is, well, George and his family from America. And I just want to make the point that I did contact George's mother, Kelly, before we did the podcast, asking if it was okay to talk about it. Because, okay, it's our experience, but it's not really our story. And she was fine with it. So I hope you have enjoyed the whole podcast. And we look forward to hopefully the next 10 years of advising and helping people with their gîtes. If you haven't met us before, we're Gîte Guru, Frank and me, Rupert. We run our own gîtes, Le Mas and Le Mazette, and when we left our careers in Amsterdam back in 2015 to run these gîtes full-time, they became our livelihood. We had to make the business work. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but through trial, error, and plenty of learning, we've built a 32-week season and a loyal base of 60% returning guests. We started Gîte Guru to share what we've learned and to help others succeed too. So if you're looking for free tips, insights and inspiration, head to gîteguru.com and subscribe to this Gîte podcast. For ongoing updates, behind-the-scenes posts and relevant Gîte news, including tax changes and industry trends, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. And if you're after more personalized support, we offer tailor-made advice around your business, your gîte, its interiors, facilities, the services you offer, and the all-important communication and marketing. So telling the story of your gîte and making it visible to your target groups. If you're interested, get in touch for a free Zoom chat about your property, your plans, and how we could help you. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru.
See you there.